This video is brought to you by Squarespace. Squarespace is the all-in-one website platform for entrepreneurs to stand out and succeed online. Whether you're just starting out or managing a growing brand, Squarespace makes it easy for you to create a beautiful website, engaging with your audience and sell anything from products to content to time. All in one place, all on your terms. Today we're talking about that mythical thing of trans privilege. Hey Spuds, it's Jamie. How's it going? Welcome back to another video. First on the channel. I don't know, but welcome either way. I'm very glad to have you here, and I'm sorry if I sound slightly nasally. I have been unwell. I am back from tour. Honestly, it's a miracle that I did not get ill on tour. I always get ill when we travel, but it waited. The ill waited till I got home. Thank you. But we're dealing with it now. Hello, snotty Jamie. Anyway, today's video, we are having a look at this list I found. It was when I was looking at like transphobic stuff, and I just found this list that was like all the ways that trans people have privilege and all the ways in which trans people are privileged and the privileges that we seem to apparently have according to this person. I don't know if it's satire. The post where I found it made it seem like it was genuinely a thing that is said and somebody believes all these. Many of them are things I have actually seen transphobes claim about the trans community or claim in some way, even if not in the exact wording. So I wouldn't be surprised if a lot, if not all of these, are genuinely believed by some transphobes, or at least the person who made this list, if it was not made in humor. I think even if it was made ironically, there's still some interesting talking points to go over, so we're gonna do that today. Are you ready? Not only because it'll infuriate the extremists on the left and TRAs, trans rights activists, but because it's true for, I really don't like these phrases, by TIMs, they're referring to trans women and calling them trans-identified males, and TIFs are trans-identified females who are trans men. It's very, very rude. If you ever see Tims or TIFs, somebody is transphobic. I know a lot is male privilege blended in too, but adding a trans identity seems to get you more in certain situations. That very much reads as, oh my goodness, this marginalized group in society is finally being slightly listened to and people are actually considering giving them equal rights. The privilege they have. Yes, how dare trans people be treated as equals within society? The privilege. Okay, trans privilege is having your concerns about healthcare in America listened to by politicians and or professionals. Oh my god. Right, so I'm based in the UK, so I cannot speak from personal experience with an American system. In terms of the UK system though, no, absolutely not. This is not true. There's been so many issues, like trans healthcare for youth has been cut and removed and just messed around with so much. And when I say trans healthcare for youth, I mean socially transitioning and maybe access to puberty blockers, but mostly just speaking to a specialist and getting some support. I mean, come on. And then the 5 to 6 year wait list for first appointments at clinics, the call for trans people to be segregated within hospital settings in a way that we can't actually be segregated. It just feels like trans people are not wanted in hospitals or to be treated. The fact that I've only ever seen one medical professional outside of a gender clinic that even understands how to communicate with me and my medical needs as a trans man. In America, I've spoken to American trans friends who, yes, I feel like the access is not fantastic over there, and having your concerns about healthcare listened to by politicians. Isn't there a constant attempt to try and restrict access to healthcare for trans people? It always seems to be up for debate or some kind of legislation attempted to be being put through to have trans people's concerns around healthcare just completely swept under the rug and made even worse in the States. So I don't know where that's come from. That's a very interesting take. Trans privilege is being able to go online without seeing hatred in the form of jokes or memes or comments because it will be immediately deleted or full of support in the replies. Firstly, no, I feel like the amount of reacting to transphobic memes videos I make is a testament to the fact that that is fake. The amount of reacting to anti-trans comments on my own videos alone that I could make proves this very much wrong, and I know that every other trans person online has a similar experience. Yes, I get support in my replies and I've seen support in other people's replies. Why not? What's bad about that? I see support in replies to a lot of bigoted comments for different types of marginalized identities. So one, no, that it is not correct that trans privilege is being able to go online without seeing hatred. Wow, the amount of trans hatred online, I mean, come on, all you need to do is go on JK Rowling's Twitter. Then 2, why is somebody having a problem with this? If this were true, wouldn't it be a good thing that transphobia is really easily shut down online? It's not, but wouldn't it be fantastic if it were? Why are you complaining? Why do you actively want people to be hated upon? Very bizarre. Trans privilege is getting people banned for making you uncomfortable when misogynistic, racist, or homophobic people being reported stay. Absolutely not true. Every single social media platform has an issue where a lot of hatred and bigotry, misogyny, racism, homophobia, transphobia falls through the cracks and remains on the platform despite being reported. Transphobia is not banned or cut down any more than other types of bigotry. The amount of times I have reported people, mostly on the platform formerly known as Twitter, for actual very disgusting transphobia that I won't repeat, but like really horrendous stuff that is just, even if you take the transphobic element out, is just not an appropriate way to speak to another human being, that no, it stays. They don't get banned, the tweet doesn't get removed, nothing. So where this person has this idea from, I feel like this is really just people who know nothing about the trans community and are just like,
trans people are so privileged. Oh my god, the privilege of being trans. That's why they all choose it.
Is that how they like get rid of the cognitive dissonance over like,
bad to be transphobic. I'm transphobic, but I don't want to be bad, so let me make an excuse as to why it's okay to be transphobic.
Trans privilege is people agreeing the way you're fetishized in is disgusting and not right. I'm surprised they didn't try to be like,
trans privilege is not being fetishized in.
I've seen the action, I've not seen the call out personally, apart from within the trans community of people calling it out. Part of me really struggles to believe that this is actually genuine and coming from a truthful place where somebody believes everything they're saying here. But I have on separate occasions seen transphobes say similar things. Just I haven't seen it all in one big list before, and it is really quite uncomfortable to read. But it is something I've seen before, that transphobes seem to think that trans people are like these people on pedestals within society that are treated with wonderful kindness and extreme privilege, and everybody like bows down to us. And I don't really understand where that impression has come from. Part of it definitely feels like that whole, if you take like the kind of homophobic cis straight white dude who sees like one gay couple or one black couple in an advert on television, and suddenly he's like,
oh my god, white straight men get no representation anymore.
That's kind of what it feels like. It's like this person has seen a couple positive articles or things or something about the trans community, and he's gone,
there's the privilege. Let me extrapolate.
I just want to take a pause from talking about all the trans privilege, because guess who's back with a new job? Oh yes, it's me. Thank you, Squarespace, for letting me carry on the fantasies. I honestly can't believe it's taken 6 months to do this idea. It was a lovely Seattle spud on the book tour who said I needed to do this as my next one, so here I am. I've been brewing on it ever since. You ready? It's time to say hello to my brand new and totally real and absolutely not made up LGBT business. The T in LGBT, the kind of tea that you don't want to spill because you want to drink it. Squarespace has allowed me to make this idea into a reality. You're gonna hear a lot of puns, okay? I'm warning you. Because when making a website with Squarespace, you know it's going to be beautiful. Sorry. Because Squarespace truly is overflowing with brilliant features. To get the party started, I made use of Squarespace's new guided design system, Squarespace Blueprint. This lets you choose from professionally curated layout and styling options to build your unique online space. Your website will be tailored to your business or website idea and optimized for every device. And once your website is ready, Squarespace's optimized SEO tools will help you get discovered fast and grow the way you want. Then get your creativity on with Squarespace's pre-built layouts, helping you create all the pages you might need with ease, as page elements can be arranged quickly and easily to showcase your content. Add or remove blocks to create a custom look for specific purposes, including contact, about, blogs, products, and more. Once you have all your pages, you can use Squarespace's terrific asset library to upload, organize, and access all your content from one place. This means I can manage all of my files from one central hub and use them across the Squarespace platform. Shopify's actual and genuinely real Squarespace website was super easy and fun to make, and something we're really proud of. So whatever your website idea, if you're looking to build a community, if you're an awesome entrepreneur, or if you want to be a rival tea maker, wouldn't recommend it. You can turn any idea into a website with Squarespace. To get started yourself, go to squarespace.com for a free trial, and when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/Jammidodger to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. The link's in the description. Go click on it. Don't be shy. That's the last one, I promise. Now we can go back to the trans privilege. Trans privilege is having a double mastectomy covered by insurance when women with documented pain and discomfort can't even get reduction, or when women have to raise funds somehow to remove the literal cancer from her breast by mastectomy. They genuinely seem to believe that access to trans healthcare is very, very easy. Access to surgeries related to being trans is very difficult. You need to have a lot of appointments. A lot of specialists need to agree that this is the appropriate thing for you to have. And often people do end up paying out of pocket for it. Not every insurance covers it in the States. And in the UK, the waiting time to go from like getting on the list with a gender clinic initially to then having something like top surgery is years, and a lot of people often end up being able to save the money faster than they wait for the NHS to be able to offer them the surgery, and they pay for it out of pocket. From a US perspective, I don't know about the truth in cis women struggling to get breast reductions when they experience pain or have mastectomies related to cancer. I know in the UK that both of those things, and certainly mastectomies related to breast cancer, would be dealt with by the NHS, and I have heard of people getting reductions on the NHS due to pain and discomfort. Regardless of the truth of that bit, even if this were true, where trans people can more quickly and easily get a double mastectomy than cis women experiencing pain, which I'm really not convinced is the case, even if it were true, why would you want somebody else to experience that? This shouldn't be an opportunity to shit on trans people. There should be an opportunity to call out poor treatment within healthcare, and say, okay, why doesn't everybody get this equal access? It shouldn't be like trans privilege, let's hate the trans people. It should be, let's discuss why medical institutions and everything is not doing a good enough job. But it's not the case, because they make up these things to make people angry. It's like healthcare for trans people is notoriously difficult to access, and to make it seem any other way is disingenuous. Trans privilege is being able to decide how people should think about you and view you when nobody in the world can. Trans privilege is being able to decide how people should think about you and view you when nobody in the world can. Sounds like they're talking about the invisible man. I would assume they're saying trans people are the ones that get the final say on how other people need to see them, and nobody else can have a say in that. I think the big difference here is trans people are saying trans men are men, trans women are women, please respect pronouns, and please just treat somebody with basic human decency when they are trans. Don't be transphobic, essentially. And that does include things like using correct pronouns, using somebody's correct name. That's not dictating somebody's worldview or saying you need to think about me in a certain way. That's just saying, just like Karen the TERF would go into a new social situation and go,
"Hi, my name's Karen,"
and would then expect people to call her Karen, trans people would expect to go into a social situation and say, "Hi, my name's Jamie," and be called Jamie. It's that very simple level of respect where if you use the wrong name for somebody, they'll correct you. If a cis person gets misgendered because their gender expression is not typical for their gender identity, they correct, and then people will change. There only ever seems to be this issue with gendering someone correctly when it comes to trans people. It's the complete opposite of trans privilege. Literally, TERFs want to have the ability to misgender trans people in the work settings and not have any repercussions for it. How is that a trans privilege? So we're not trying to change people's view. You have whatever view you want, but just be respectful. You wouldn't deliberately misgender and call a cis person by the wrong name or use the wrong pronoun. So why would you do that to a trans person? That's just being discriminatory, and it's not fair. But in your head, think whatever you want. I'm not trying to change that. If you find your own way one day, fantastic. But if you don't, then that's your old-fashioned mindset to live with. Trans privilege is getting subreddits deleted from existence because you don't like it. When subs and other abusive shit exists. They only looked at things that got deleted that were transphobic and not other things, because I believe that Reddit went on this big like kind of mass deletion of really hateful subreddits, but it wasn't just trans related ones. This is such a blinkered worldview to think that trans people get some kind of special treatment because we're trans, and also to use that as a way to complain that even if any of these were marginally true, which so far no, like you're then just actively campaigning against transphobia being shut down. Why not say, great, you're doing a good job on the transphobia there, internet and other places, but let's now address these things that are still failing. That's what I don't get. It's like, why do you want to shit on other people? Like, even if I'm saying all this with the caveat that these things are not happening, these are not trans privileges, these are not true, but even if they were, even if in some magical fantasy land where transphobia didn't exist, or if it happened, it got shut down and trans people were respected and had equal rights and great access to healthcare, why would you want to take that away from a group of people just because some other people don't have it? I'm not sat here going, X group is fantastically respected within society, I don't think they should be. I'm sat here going, I think we should be equal, please. Trans privilege is avoiding jail time or getting a lesser punishment after a crime. Trans privilege is having to be segregated within prison systems because people are going to be really violent towards you. Like, literally, I don't know where they're finding this. Trans privilege is being allowed to send, let's just say, violent threats to women and have it be justified by all. I don't think it's ever justified, though. I personally do not agree with threats of violence being sent from anyone to anyone. I do not agree with that. What I do see, though, is huge amounts of violent threats made towards the trans community that never get mentioned. And then somebody who is a trans person or a trans ally, or that, you know, saying it in support of the trans community, will say something and it is piled up. Like, it is treated like the most scandalous thing to ever happen. And actually, it's often the other way round, where TERFs and transphobes have done a lot of shit and it just completely slips under the radar because they're not trans. Whereas trans people, even doing a inside joke comment that's not violent and it's not threatening and it's not meant in any way, gets picked up and it gets made to sound like it's this incredibly violent, disgusting, horrible thing when it's not. So this one is just, they're all kinds of wrong. They're just all wrong. I can't say one is more wrong than another, but they're all of it. Trans privilege is being able to claim a genocide despite literally nobody dying for their identity when the war on women or femicide is deemed not happening or not important. What I have seen is a lot of transphobes who claim to be being transphobic in the name of women's rights don't actually care or ever speak up about women's rights. All they do is say transphobic stuff and call it feminism, and that's not what feminism is, because trans women are women and should be included in that feminism, and transphobes don't include them. And the thing is, I'm not here to pit women's rights against trans rights, because they're not in competition with each other, not against each other. Both deserve attention, both need to be fought for. But what I am going to call out is trans privileges being able to claim a genocide despite literally nobody dying for their identity. When people say genocide, it's because you literally do a very quick Google and things like gender critical author Helen Joyce says she wants to reduce number of trans people. And in the meantime, while we're trying to get through to the decision makers, we have to try to limit the harm, and that means reducing or keeping down the number of people who transition. That's for two reasons. One of them is that every one of those people is a person who's been damaged, but the second one is every one of those people is basically, you know, a huge problem to a sane world. Helen Joyce's comments described as chilling. Listen to this and tell me they don't want to eradicate trans people. That's their end game. That's one example. The second example is Michael Knowles says transgenderism must be eradicated. CPAC speaker calls for eradication of transgenderism and somehow claims he's not calling for elimination of transgender people. There is no separating a ban on transgenderism from an attack on transgender people, says activist Evan Reed. They are one and the same, and there's no separation between them. So when the trans community is saying that there are people wanting to eradicate the existence of trans people, it's because there are literally people saying they want to reduce/eradicate trans people from the world. So, thank you. Thanks for nothing. Trans privilege is deciding you're allowed in any group you want to be in, regardless of if it's for something specific that you're not. this is written in a way that makes it it's not just hateful, but it's also just badly written, and it makes it very tiring to read. So they're basically here just saying,
I don't think trans women should be in women's spaces, but trans women get to decide that they can be in those spaces, even though I, a transphobe, don't think it's for them.
Boo-hoo. Trans women belong in women's spaces because they are women. Trans men belong in men's spaces because they are men. Trans people are not pick and choosing. This argument baffles me. Trans privilege is being invited to speak to the president or interviewed by news stations about your human rights or whatever. I mean, trans rights are human rights, and trans people are not treated equally within society and do not have equal rights, so thank you. I'm running out of things to say because all I can say is this is so wrong, and it's just completely disregarding the fact that trans people deserve to have equal rights, and that is why these things happen. If you come to the UK, however, if you're telling me this is what happens in the States, I've heard other things. I have seen trans people being invited to the White House and stuff, but they're not the only people invited to the White House, let's not forget. But interviewed by news stations, uplifted, I don't think it's a huge amount. And in the UK, one of our two main political parties, literally just yesterday or something when I was filming this, has invited JK Rowling to come and speak to them about gender things. The TERF, the transphobe, has been invited to speak to the people who are potentially going to run our country or be running the country by the time this comes out, I don't know, to speak about trans issues. And you think there's trans privilege in that? And then in terms of news stations, transphobes get significantly more airtime than trans people, and most of the time when trans people are on TV in the UK, it's always posed as some form of debate with a transphobe, where the trans person is literally just sat there asking to be respected and having to argue about why we're valid. Yay. Trans privilege is getting away with gaslighting and abusing everyone you ever meet. No. Trans privilege is the police taking you seriously when you say you feel unsafe because of someone and investigating them. Not from what I've heard, but also like, why are you complaining that people would be taken seriously when they're put in danger? This is just starting to read like this person is really not a nice person. Starting to? I mean, it's been like that from the beginning. Trans privilege is demanding someone find you attractive and date you with people agreeing. No, it's not. It's just saying, please don't be just so disgustingly transphobic. If you don't want to date trans people, fine, but you don't have to be all like, oh, that's super straight. Nobody's forcing anybody to find someone attractive that they don't find attractive or to date someone they don't want to date. It's just a matter of saying like there can be a lot of unconscious biases going on when you have like certain dating preferences that are to do with things like being trans or race and weight and things like that maybe people should think about. But if you don't want to date a trans person, fine, just don't be a dick about it. Trans privilege is not having to educate someone about anything they post when feminists are expected to provide multiple sources of proof for theirs. Trans people are never asked to provide evidence? Really? Trans privilege is having this claim believed anyway despite zero sources when women will be told some reason why hers still isn't true. I feel like here they're talking about a woman who is being transphobic is the one being asked to provide sources and evidence for the transphobic claims, whereas the trans person can just refute those transphobic claims without being asked to provide evidence. Very much not the case. Actually, I've never seen a transphobe be able to provide legitimate sources or evidence to back up what they're saying, whereas huge body of evidence to back up trans people. Massive. I've covered it many times across many videos, and it is often requested of me to back up what I'm saying, so I started doing it consistently. Trans privilege is being the only oppressed group in existence that didn't have to fight for literal decades or more, and even still to be recognized and acknowledged and create a massive social conversation about it. They do realize trans people have been around like forever. Trans people have always existed. The only reason that people like this are having an issue with trans people now is because we've literally only just, like in the history of society, only just started gaining some kind of recognition and representation within society. And this always happens when a hated upon group, like a pushed down, ignored group, start actually making some progress with rights and representation. All the hatred gets louder because people don't like things they don't understand. understand and that they felt like they could just ignore before, but now maybe they can't. Trans people definitely, we don't think we're the only oppressed group within society. Trans privilege is being allowed to treat minimum wage workers like absolute shit with no true backlash anywhere. Where did that come from? Where, if anybody is treating minimum wage workers like shit without backlash, it's not the trans people. The people that do that probably fall more in the category of cis white men billionaires, most likely. There are exceptions, but it's not trans people doing this. Oh my god. And if a trans person were doing that, it wouldn't be a privilege for them as a trans person that they wouldn't be getting called out. Trans privilege is being able to say lesbians could like penis if they try and not being called homophobic. This is not something I've ever seen. What actually happens is trans people are saying like trans women who are exclusively attracted to women are lesbians. That's it. And it's transphobes who are like,
no, because they're not real women, they're not actually lesbian. And if you're cis and you say you're a lesbian, but you're with a trans woman, then you're not really a lesbian.
It's actually the transphobes who are trying to push labels onto people when those people are saying, no, that's not me. That's not how I identify. You are forcing something upon me that isn't right. That's not what trans people are doing. Trans privilege is the ability to say you're treated differently for being trans and sympathized with / believed when women who say they experience sexism are told to shut the f up and it didn't happen or that's not why it did. This person clearly has a huge issue with trans people and seems to think that trans people are in some way to blame for the lack of equality for women within society. And it's like, can we stop pitting these two things together? Like, synergy is fantastic. When we work together and we get along, we can progress much faster. Trans rights need to be fought for. Women's rights need to be fought for. Both deserve to be progressed. Both can be progressed at the same time, and neither impedes the other's progression. And it's not a competition. It's not the oppression Olympics that we're playing right now. It's just saying that as human beings within society, we all deserve to be treated with equality and with fairness. And that does not always happen for women, and that does not always happen for trans people, as well as it doesn't always happen for people of color and for gay people and for people with disabilities. Like, there's so many different groups that require more rights and more representation and equality that this person's just got so fixated on like trans people being the reason why women's rights are not progressing any faster. Trans privilege is supposedly having experiences exclusive to being trans when women can't say the same for being female. Trans privilege is being the only demographic allowed to have exclusive experiences without backlash. Exclusive experiences. I mean, I can think of gender dysphoria, but in terms of like HRT, lots of cis people take HRT. Lots of cis people get gender affirming healthcare, like cis men getting hair transplants for male pattern baldness, breast augmentation, a lot of different types of plastic surgery, hair transplants for cis women as well. And the whole thing about like women can't say the same for being female in terms of exclusive experiences is because there's a recognition that trans men can have periods, trans men can give birth, those types of things. But really, a lot of that is just a call to say, hey, let's not reduce people down to their reproductive ability and their genitals, which is actually something that was really part of the rights movement for women, to be like, women are more than their ability to have babies. But transphobes who have this type of mindset are literally like pushing us back into that realm of being like,
oh no, the be all and end all of a woman is having a womb and having a baby.
And it's like, since when were we 60 years ago? When did this happen? And you're saying all of this because of how much you just want to like shit on trans people. So actually, I think the transphobes who shout the loudest about saying that trans rights impede on women's rights and trans people existing impede on women's rights are actually the ones doing the most damage to women's rights. Trans privilege is someone threatening if they don't get what they want being catered to instead of seen as the abuse it is. That was the last one, and I'm very glad they've ended it on saying any more you can think of. And I'm like, absolutely not, because none of the ones above are even true. It's so heartbreaking to see somebody twist mental health within the trans community in this way and make it sound like it's a manipulation tactic from trans people to threaten to harm themselves if they don't get access to healthcare and things, when actually it's just an evidenced thing that access to to healthcare, acceptance, being able to live as themselves greatly improves the well-being of trans people. And having those things together, being in a supportive environment, not being exposed to huge amounts of transphobia, being able to access the gender affirming care that that person needs, and being able to live in society as their true selves, those things greatly improve well-being. And we kind of need a combination of all of them for that improvement to truly be seen. It's not a threat, and it's not a do this or else. It's literally people really struggling with their mental health when they cannot be their true selves. All of these are disgusting, but that one is pretty horrendous. Well, that was the end of the list. Let's have a chat. So when I first started reading that, there was part of me that was like, this could just be satire. This could be somebody pretending to be a TERF and writing a list. But you know, when you feel like there becomes a point where it's gone too far, and I'm like, there wasn't satire or irony in this. And if this was intended in that way, it really missed the mark, and it was inappropriate in its own way for going so hard in like this. None of this that relates to the trans community is correct. It's literally so many lies, and it really is horrible to read, but is a great tool to highlight just how absolutely lacking in knowledge transphobes are, who are like this, people like this, TERFs. When I say TERFs or transphobes, I separate TERFs sometimes from transphobes generally, even though they are just transphobes, because it's a very particular type of transphobia that falls into this bucket. This is like a very extreme version of like TERF type rhetoric. There are a few bits missing, but we don't need to cover those today. A lot of like TERF rhetoric is covered in quite a prominent way throughout this list. I don't really know how to sum it up, because I feel like I read like 5 to 7 of them and I was still in this kind of like, oh my god, this is awful kind of mood. And then I read more and I was like, people are genuinely believing this stuff. And that's really scary, that there's literally a group within society who just want to be able to live our lives, have access to appropriate healthcare, which should just be a right that people have, that many other people have, and just to not face such huge amounts of loud discrimination. And this is what people have to say about it. And they're pitting trans rights against women's rights, and they are trying to claim that trans people are manipulative and malicious in some way and are a danger in society, and that all the claims that trans people make are false. And there's a lot of evidence to support trans people in society, both in terms of like trans people being valid and actually existing, to trans people's requirement for gender affirming care, to things that affect trans people's well-being. You know, it's all there to literal evidence that refutes what this person has said here. That was quite heavy. So let's end this on a nice note. What are some genuine trans privileges? We often get to pick our own names, but then anybody can do that. Having a wonderful community, but needing that community because trans rights are so shit and trans people are discriminated against. Okay, what trans privilege? Literally all I can think of is like, I chose my own name. Fun times. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. Go leave your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know if there is another job you would like me to do at some point when I inevitably will be done with tea making. Go comment down below what you think. Go click that link to go check out Squarespace if you want to. And yeah, as always, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Much love. Bye.